The name of the story, Ghost Lights of Savannah. Chapter 1. Shadows on the Cobblestones. The streets of Savannah had a way of holding on to secrets. On warm evenings, when the air clung thick like velvet, lantern light flickered against cobblestones that had witnessed centuries of footsteps, soldiers, merchants, wanderers, lovers, and mourners. Tonight was one of those evenings, and Emma Caldwell was already waiting in her usual spot, just beyond Reynolds Square. She held a lantern in her hand, not for necessity, but for atmosphere. Its soft amber glow cast her in a halo, setting her apart from the group that had begun to gather around her. Tourists clutched cameras and water bottles, adjusting hats and fanning themselves. They were restless, skeptical, curious, the perfect audience. "Good evening, y'all," Emma began, her voice smooth and lilting, trained by years of storytelling. "My name's Emma, and tonight I'll be your guide through the darker, stranger history of Savannah. Some of what you hear may chill your bones, some might break your heart, but all of it, I promise you, is true." She always loved the way their faces changed at that line. Some scoffed, others leaned forward, and one or two smiled nervously, already imagining shadows shifting in the periphery. What Emma didn't love was when one of them showed up with a microphone. Standing at the edge of the group was a tall man in his late 20s, arms crossed over his chest, a small recording device clipped to his shirt. His expression wasn't open curiosity, but cool amusement, like he'd already figured out the trick behind a magic show. His eyes, though, a steady gray that caught the lamplight, followed her closely. Noah Carter. She didn't know his name yet, but she knew the type. Podcaster, journalist, debunker. She'd seen them before. Folks who thought ghost tours were easy prey, good material for a laugh, or a takedown piece about gullibility in the digital age. Still, she smiled warmly at him, as she did to all her guests, and lifted the lantern higher. "Shall we begin?" They wound through the streets, past iron-wrought balconies and moss-draped oaks that swayed like old sentinels. Emma wove her stories carefully. The tale of the grieving widow who paced her attic window, the mysterious lights flickering over Colonial Park Cemetery, the sailors who never left the riverfront. She gave them pathos and pause, voice dipping when she spoke of tragedy, lifting when she allowed a touch of humor. Most of the group was enchanted, or at least entertained. But Noah kept raising an eyebrow, occasionally muttering into his recorder. "Some say lights dance over the gravestones at night," Emma told them at the cemetery gates. "Not lanterns, not fireflies. Lights with no source, no explanation." She let the silence stretch before continuing. "Some believe they're the souls of soldiers buried without names, still seeking recognition." A shiver ran through the crowd. Someone whispered, "I think I saw something." Noah spoke clearly for his recorder. "Most likely swamp gas, phosphorescence from decaying material." Emma caught his words and felt irritation prickle. Yet she kept her smile, turning to him. "Perhaps, and perhaps not. Savannah has a way of keeping her secrets from science." The group chuckled, entertained by the exchange. But Emma noticed how Noah's mouth twitched, like he wasn't expecting her to volley back so smoothly. By the time they reached Lafayette Square, clouds had gathered overhead. The air grew heavier, pressing close to skin and breath. "Promising." Emma glanced up uneasily. "Looks like we're in for a storm," she said, lifting her lantern. "Best keep moving." They hurried along, but the first fat drops of rain splattered against stone before they made it to the next stop. Thunder rumbled, low, and within moments, the sky cracked open, rain pouring in silver sheets. Tourists squealed and ran for cover, scattering to nearby awnings and porches. Emma cursed softly under her breath. Savannah weather was as unpredictable as its ghost stories. Noah, however, stayed near her, water plastering his dark hair to his forehead. He looked around, then pointed toward a looming silhouette just across the square. "Over there," he called above the downpour. "That mansion, doors open." Emma hesitated. She knew the house well, an abandoned estate, empty for decades. But with the storm breaking, there was little choice. She nodded, gripping her lantern, and together they sprinted through the sheets of rain. The heavy doors creaked as Noah shoved them open, and they stumbled inside, dripping and breathless. The silence that met them was thicker than the storm outside. Emma lifted her lantern, its glow cutting across peeling wallpaper and a grand staircase sagging with age. Dust motes swirled in the humid air, disturbed for the first time in years. "This isn't on the tour," Noah said, his voice low. Emma smiled faintly, her wet hair clinging to her face. "No, this is extra." And as thunder rolled overhead, the abandoned mansion seemed to breathe around them, every shadow stretching just a little too far. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. The mansion smelled of damp wood and forgotten time. Rain hammered the roof above, each rumble of thunder rattling the windows. Emma's lantern swung gently in her hand, casting shifting shadows across faded portraits and cracked molding. "This place," she whispered, more to herself than to Noah, "was once the pride of the Broughton family. They were merchants and mourners." Noah smirked faintly, though he lowered his voice. "Let me guess, some tragic tale to go along with the peeling wallpaper?" Emma glanced at him, unimpressed but unwilling to yield ground. "Every corner of Savannah has a tale. You just have to listen." He opened his mouth with some retort, but the air inside the house silenced him. The creak of settling beams, the low sigh of wind through a broken shutter. It was easy, in that moment, to imagine the house alive. Emma walked ahead, boots echoing against warped floorboards. She brushed her hand over the banister of the staircase, her expression softening. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about this place," she said, voice lowering into something personal. The Broughton girl, Margaret, was engaged, but her fiancé died overseas. She wore her wedding dress every night, waiting for him. They say she never stopped waiting. She didn't look at Noah when she added, "My grandmother was her cousin." Family always swore they could still hear Margaret's footsteps in the halls. Noah frowned. That wasn't the sort of scripted tale he expected on a tour. There was a catch in her voice, something that sounded like memory instead of performance. "Family stories have a way of sticking," he said carefully, lifting his recorder. "But footsteps? That's just creaky wood." Emma laughed softly, though there was no mockery in it. "Maybe, or maybe some things refused to leave." They explored further, lantern light sliding across grand but decayed rooms. A dining hall where dust covered long-forgotten cutlery, a parlor with velvet curtains rotting into threads, a library where mold clung to spines of leather-bound books. Rain drummed steady, but inside, time felt suspended. At one point, Emma paused near a cracked mirror in the hallway. Her reflection looked older in the glass, distorted by streaks. She shivered. Noah caught it. "You okay?" She nodded, forcing a smile. "This house always felt close to me, like it remembers." He tilted his head. "You've been here before?" "My mother brought me once when I was a child. Said it was where our family roots twisted into something tragic." She glanced down the hallway, lantern trembling faintly in her grasp. "She told me never to wander alone here, that whispers follow." Noah leaned against the wall, recording. "And did they?" Emma's eyes met his. "Yes." The word lingered between them. They moved toward the staircase, Emma pausing at the bottom step. Her lantern swayed, light pooling against the first landing. The air was thick, too thick, as if the mansion itself was holding its breath. And then soft, barely audible. "Whisper, whisper." Emma froze. Noah's smirk faltered. He raised his recorder. "Did you?" The sound came again. Indistinct, like words half-formed. A rush of air, a breath not their own. Emma's pulse spiked. "We need to." Whisper laugh. That last note was playful, mischievous, and startlingly close. Noah's skepticism cracked wide open. He grabbed Emma's wrist, and for a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other, wide-eyed. Then they bolted. Laughter, real, alive, theirs tumbled out of them as they ran down the hallway, splashing through puddles forming on the warped wood where rain leaked in. The house seemed to echo their panic and exhilaration, every shadow lunging after them. They shoved through the heavy doors and into the storm. Rain soaked them instantly, but they were laughing still, gasping for air, alive in a way neither expected. Noah bent over, hands on his knees, recorder still miraculously intact. That, he panted, grinning despite himself. That was not swamp gas. Emma's wet hair clung to her cheeks, lantern sputtering in her hand. Her smile was radiant, unguarded. Savannah has her ways. And for the first time, Noah didn't want to argue. The storm eased by midnight, leaving the streets gleaming under gas lamps. The rest of the tour group had long since scattered, but Emma and Noah found themselves walking side by side beneath the dripping oaks. Their laughter softened into something quieter, more thoughtful. Emma spoke of her grandmother's stories, of how she'd grown up between fact and folklore, choosing to believe because it gave meaning to shadows. Noah listened, really listened for the first time that night. His recorder hung silent at his side. "You don't really think ghosts are out there, do you?" he asked finally, though his tone lacked its earlier edge. Emma smiled gently. "I don't think they're out there. I think they're here." She tapped her chest lightly. "In the stories we keep alive. In the memories that haunt us because they matter." Noah stopped walking. He stared at her, lantern glow warming her face. For a moment, Savannah seemed utterly still. Chapter 3. Ghost Lights. The next morning, Savannah woke under a veil of fog. Spanish moss hung damp and silver across the live oaks, and the streets seemed quieter than usual, as if the city, too, was recovering from a storm. Emma sipped her coffee at a small cafe near Chippewa Square, her notebook open in front of her. She had filled its pages with fragments, dates, family names, snippets of tales she'd memorized as a girl. But now her pen hovered without moving. The night before lingered too strongly. The sound of whispers, the pulse of laughter breaking free in the dark, the look on Noah's face when skepticism cracked into wonder. She closed the notebook softly. As if on cue, Noah appeared at the corner of the square. His shirt was wrinkled, his backpack weighed down with recording equipment, but his stride was uncertain, hesitant in a way she hadn't seen before. "Morning," he said when he reached her table. Emma arched a brow. "I didn't think skeptics liked early hours." "Usually don't." He pulled out the chair across from her, sitting down. "But I couldn't stop thinking about last night." Emma sipped her coffee. "Storms have a way of sticking with you." Noah shook his head, gray eyes steady on hers. "Not just the storm. The house. The voices." The words seemed to taste strange in his mouth. Emma leaned back, studying him. "You sound like someone who's starting to believe." He gave a short laugh. "Maybe not believe, but doubt myself, which for me is a start." She smiled, warmth curling in her chest. "Savannah will do that." They spent the day walking the city, not as guide and guest, but as companions. Emma led him through Forsyth Park, where the fountain gleamed white against the green. She showed him the Mercer Williams house, where history and tragedy blurred. They paused along River Street, watching cargo ships slide past as gulls wheeled overhead. Everywhere they went, Emma's voice softened the edges of the city into something mythic, half ghost, half memory. And Noah listened, not with the detachment of a debunker, but with something closer to reverence. At one point, he stopped her on the cobblestones. "Why do you do this?" he asked. "Telling these stories. Carrying them." Emma hesitated. Her eyes drifted toward the river, where sunlight fractured across the water. "Because my family's part of it. The tragedies, the whispers, the ones who never left. If I don't tell their stories, who will? Savannah remembers, but she needs a voice." She looked at him, her gaze steady. "And maybe I need them, too, to feel less alone." The admission surprised her, but it was true. Noah's expression softened. "You're not alone." For once, he wasn't recording. That night, Emma brought him back to Colonial Park Cemetery. Lantern in hand, she guided him between the crooked stones, moss trailing overhead like fingers reaching down. It was quiet, too quiet. Even the cicadas seemed hushed. "Most people come here hoping to see something," Emma whispered. "But sometimes it's just about feeling it." Noah looked around, uneasy but not dismissive. "And what do you feel right now?" Emma inhaled deeply, the scent of wet earth thick in the air. that the past is close, always closer than we think. They stopped near an unmarked grave. The lantern flame shivered, though the air was still. Noah's hand brushed hers tentative. "Emma," he began, but the words faltered. And then it happened, soft, distant, but undeniable. A glow. Just beyond the stones, a pale light drifted, like a lantern carried by no hand. It wavered, flickered, and then vanished. Another followed, faint but real, bobbing through the trees. Emma's breath caught. Noah's recorder was in his pocket, forgotten. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Noah whispered, "I saw that." Emma smiled, her hand finding his fully now. "Told you. Savannah has her secrets." The lights shimmered once more before fading into the night, leaving only silence and the warmth of their joined hands. They left the cemetery together, lanterns swinging gently between them. The city stretched out in hushed wonder, cobblestones gleaming, oaks whispering in the dark. Noah glanced at Emma, his skepticism gone, replaced by something steadier, stronger. "Maybe ghosts are real," he said softly. "Or maybe just the way we hold on to each other is." Emma squeezed his hand, her smile quiet and knowing. "Either way," she replied, "I think you're part of my story now." And as they walked into the heart of Savannah, lantern light weaving around them, the city seemed to agree, its shadows bending close, its secrets safe, its ghost lights burning on. The end. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.